Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Global Public Seminar in Comparative and International Education. In these seminars, which were launched in 2021, we address critical topics resonating with academics, practitioners, and policymakers across the world. Today, we're starting to host, launching a special series of webinars dedicated to the Ukrainian higher education in times of war. This series of 4 webinars are convened by Dr. Yuliya Zayachuk and myself. Yuliya is from Ivan Franko National University of Lviv in Ukraine. She is currently an academic visitor at the Department of Education at Oxford. I am Maya Changseliani. I'm Associate Professor of Comparative and International Education at Oxford. In the midst of Russia's ongoing military invasion of Ukraine, this series aims to give a glimpse of how Ukrainian universities navigate these challenging times. Despite the adversities of war, Ukrainian universities have shown remarkable resilience. They continue to prioritize the pursuit of knowledge, with many academics and students actively contributing to the global academic community, exemplifying the enduring spirit of higher education in Ukraine. This series explores how universities ensure the provision of education and research while prioritizing the safety of participants in the educational and research processes. Our speakers, we will have overall 4 speakers. They represent various Ukrainian universities. Sorry, there was a little request. These speakers will share their experiences in tackling the profound challenges posed by the war. The first seminar today features Dr. Yuliya Zayachuk, co-convener of the seminar series. Before introducing Yuliya in greater detail, let me attend to a few administrative points. This webinar, as you might have noticed already, is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online in due course. Please keep yourself muted throughout the webinar unless you have been invited to speak. If you would like to share your comment or to ask a question after the talk, please use the chat function and write out your question or comment very briefly, because that gives me an idea who wants to speak. At the end of the presentation, if your question is selected, you will be invited to ask it yourself directly. When I invite you to ask your question, please unmute yourself, switch on your video, and state your name, where you are from, and share your comment or question. So let me introduce Dr. Yuliya Zayachuk. Yuliya is from Ivan Franko National University of Lviv, as I mentioned already. She's currently hosted at the Department of Education here at Oxford and is supported by British Academy and by Karen. Yuliya's research focuses on higher education, specifically global higher education dynamics, internationalization in higher education, and educational policy. Yuliya was an academic visiting different universities across the world, including the University of Tartu in Finland, Humboldt University in Germany, University of Manitoba, Alberta, and Toronto in Canada. She has been involved in a variety of international projects throughout her career. Today's talk is titled "The Response of the Higher Education System of Ukraine to Russia's Military Aggression: National, Institutional, and Individual Levels." I will now pass over to our speaker.
Thank you, Maya. I will try to share my screen, and please tell me if it is good.
Yes, please. Yes, Yuliya, it's shared. If you want to make it full screen, yes. Great.
Okay, thank you very much again for your presentation. And let's start. Today, at the University of Oxford Department of Education, we are launching our special series, as Maya already mentioned. We are launching our special series of talks titled Ukrainian Higher Education in Times of War, as part of the Global Public Seminars on Comparative and International Education. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Maya Chanseliani, convener of the Global Public Seminars on Comparative International Education, Associate Professor, for supporting of the idea of the series of talks on higher education of Ukraine, and for all our cooperation, which ultimately made possible the organization of this talk series. This talk series on Ukrainian higher education explores how Ukrainian universities, demonstrating incredible resilience, continue fulfilling their mission in the current dramatic circumstances and extremely difficult challenges of Russia's ongoing military invasion of Ukraine, which caused enormous suffering in every sphere throughout the country, including that of higher education. Speakers representing various Ukrainian universities will share their research results and personal experience in solving the problems that Ukrainian universities are facing. We will also show the possibility of useful practical lessons learned from Ukrainians' tenacity that can be used by other countries facing existential threats. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed 24th of January as International Day of Education. So we start our seminar series exploring Ukrainian higher education in times of war, which is timed in with UNESCO's this year's theme of learning for lasting peace. Indeed, without inclusive and fair quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all, sustainable development of society is impossible. My talk will be devoted to the research on higher education in Ukraine, the main responses of Ukrainian universities to dramatic circumstances and extremely complex challenges caused by Russia's military invasion of Ukraine, with a special emphasis on the internationalization as an integral part of Ukrainian university activities in time of war. I will present my personal teaching experience in ensuring quality higher education and motivating students based on developed partnerships and some results of an empirical research on the processes of changes in higher education in Ukraine through the prism of the experience of students. In Ukraine, much efforts during the period of independence since 1991 were aimed at the implementation of the ideas of quality education and global partnership for sustainable development. Only after achieving national independence in 1991, a unified and independent Ukrainian system of education started development. From this moment, the formation of national system of higher education of Ukraine begins on new legislative basis. So the Constitution of Ukraine, the law on education and law on higher education contributes the legal framework for the Ukrainian higher education. Joining the Bologna became an unquestionable success for Ukraine and a positive step towards integrating Ukrainian education into the European higher education area. According to the national doctrine of education of Ukraine, access to education received in Ukraine to the market of educational service, deepening international cooperation, participation in international projects are considered a strategic task of educational policy of Ukraine. From our perspective, one of the key components of the national strategy for improving the space of higher education in Ukraine and aspect of their resilience to challenges and crisis phenomena is internationalization. The new opportunities for the development of higher education in Ukraine were provided through international scientific projects, through international educational projects, and cooperation with international organizations. So before the war, we had steady tendency to increase the number of participants of such projects, to increase the number of students and teachers of higher education institutions, participants in international academic mobility programs who has acquired educational experience outside the native country and brought it to the university, to their home university. As an example, let's refer to the data on the mobility of students from Ukraine and to the EU and back under the Erasmus Plus program in the 5 pre-war years, 1620. You can see it here. So during this period, the number of participants outgoing from Ukraine to EU increased approximately 1.5 times. And the number of participants incoming from EU to Ukraine increased more than 2 times. I want to highlight especially increasing the percentage. It is here, yellow column, increasing the percentage of participants from EU relative to the number of participants to Ukraine. In my opinion, this trend indicates an increase in interest in Ukraine from the side of our European partners. Russia's military invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022 changed everything. It caused enormous suffering for the Ukrainian people as a whole and created extremely difficult challenges for the Ukrainian universities. Since the beginning of Russian invasion, many teachers and students were forced to move to relatively safe areas of Ukraine or abroad. Those who are in temporary occupied or deoccupied territories need special attention and support. The problem of satisfying educational interests in case of students staying abroad and complying with the legislation of a foreign country and simultaneously receiving education in the Ukrainian educational institution is extremely relevant. So we are aware that we must do everything possible and impossible, not only for the successful functioning of the educational system of Ukraine in this extremely difficult period, but also for its successful development and further reform to provide quality education based on sustainable development. Russia's war against Ukraine forced higher education institutions of Ukraine to face numerous challenges. To survive, to continue the quality educational services providing, to preserve scientific potential, to adapt to new conditions, not losing hope for further development. As of the beginning of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, we were 281 higher education institutions in Ukraine. As of August 15, the beginning of the new academic year, August 15, 2022, in Ukraine, due to the Russian full-scale aggression, we had a terrible picture. 43 institutions of higher education were damaged, 5 institutions of higher education were destroyed. In general, for all types of educational institutions, we have a terrible picture, which you can see here in the slide. And statistics change every day because the war is ongoing. For example, according to the Office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, as of February 24, 2023, it is after a year of war, the situation looks like this. 461 children were killed, 927 children had been injured, 167 professional pre-higher and higher education institutions were damaged, 24 institutions were destroyed. So Ukrainian government is doing its best for ensuring sustainability of learning and teaching, to creation a safe condition for pupils and students, teaching and lecturers, to support for those who were forced to go abroad, or safer regions, comparable safer regions of Ukraine, to continue systematic reforms at all levels of education, and for ensuring the sustainability of national education in general. Despite all the troubles and suffering that Russian military invasion brought to Ukraine, the system of higher education managed to adapt to the war. Let's focus on some of the main answers of higher education system of Ukraine to military challenges. You can see them here. There are improvement of online education systems, organization of work of displaced higher education institutions from occupied territories to Ukrainian control territories, support of international institutions, and partner programs with partner universities. Let's talk about these responses. Concerning the first one, after the Russian invasion on February 24, 2022, the educational process in Ukrainian higher education institutions stopped for some time. But already from March 14, 2022, it began to recover. Ukrainian university had managed to use the experience gained during the crisis for the COVID pandemic quite effectively, quickly switching to online learning. For the most part, the educational process took place remotely in synchronous or asynchronous modes. First example, it means a format of online conferences. Second one is class, means electronic courses on Moodle or Google Classroom platform, or messages, something like that. However, it should be added also here that during the winter 2022-23, there had been even fewer opportunities to hold classes even online due to the massive rocket attacks on the interior territory of Ukraine, which led to major destruction of critical infrastructure and the absence of electricity, internet, and mobile communication. So this is extremely difficult challenge even for distance learning. Another response that was used by Ukrainian higher education institutions to adapt to the realities of the state of war is experience gained by displaced higher education institutions during Russia's military occupation of Donetsk, Luhansk region of Ukraine starting in 2014, and organization of their work now in 2022. As of 15th of August 2022, it is the beginning again of new academic year. Since the beginning of the Russian aggression, 42 universities and 94 colleges and technical schools from the east and south of Ukraine, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson region, and part of the Zaporizhia region have been relocated to safer regions of Ukraine. This time, Ukraine managed also to move institutions of professional preliminary education, colleges, technical schools. In 2014, we lost such institutions. So now they work not within their walls, but in their status. According to the data of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, more than 54,000 of students study and 7,000 of teachers work in displaced institutions. Universities are displaced to 16 cities and of 14 regions of Ukraine. Displacement of university takes place in one of two formats, minimal or extended. There are many specific initiatives that respond. There are many specific initiatives from international institutions initiated to support the Ukrainian higher education system at various levels, national, institutional, individual. This shows the role of partnerships to achieve the goals in ensuring the quality of education and scientific research and the further development of professional and personal skills of students necessary for raising national economy and civil society in the post-war period. Among them are the following: Erasmus, Horizon Europe program, Bologna Hub, peer support program, Solidarity with Ukraine, MSCA for Ukraine Fellowship Scheme, the Researchers at Risk Fellowship Program of the British Academy, and others. Ukraine is a partner country within Erasmus+. Erasmus Plus strategy built to foster closer cooperation between higher education institutions and to strengthen international cooperations in education, what is extremely important for today's Ukraine. The content of these initiatives is shown on this slide. Horizon Europe program, Ukrainian scientists receive support for the internationalization of scientific projects under the actions of Maria Skłodowska-Curie program of the Horizon Europe program. The main objectives of the project Bologna Hub for Support tool, developing and updating study programs, innovation, internationalization, and digitalization, is to continue to foster the implementation of Bologna key components and the application of the Bologna tools at higher education institutions throughout the European higher education area. Solidarity with Ukraine program financed by the Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange, NAVA. It is developed to foster flexible education paths, provide access to the European education area, and strengthen research and didactic potentials of Ukrainian universities. This support enables displaced researchers to continue their work at academic and non-academic organizations of EU member states and Horizon Europe associated countries while maintaining their connections to research and innovation communities in Ukraine. So this fellowship scheme is funded under the EU's Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions. The Researchers at Risk Fellowship Program, established by the British Academy and the Council for At-Risk Academics, researchers and innovators supported through this program can take up these contemporary fellowships at the host UK institutions, continue their research, enhance their skills, and build long-lasting collaborative links with UK counterparts. It is in this difficult time of the war disaster, more and more international partners program which aim to support Ukrainian universities are appearing. There are many programs that support Ukrainian scientists and students from universities in Germany, Poland, Lithuania, and others. I want to give you one example, namely full funded scholarship scheme for graduate students from Ukraine, launched by the University of Oxford and its colleges. Within the scholarship scheme, 26 scholarships were offered to graduates who are originally resident in Ukraine for admission to postgraduate courses here in Oxford. In the context of the response to new global higher education realities, which require the implementation of new ideas, new formats, and context of educational activities that motivate students, I would like to share my personal teaching experience in practical implementation of the results of the internationalization of higher education, which is based on a developed partnership to ensure quality higher education, to motivate students and integrate all participants of educational process. For this goal, program strategy of internationalization at the institutional level was implemented, namely joint global classroom. Global classroom is an international interactive online class where students at different universities from different countries or even different continents, while at their home university, gain global experience studied together and communicated online in a friendly atmosphere and multilingual environment. We launched a series of international online interactive classes during COVID pandemic for students of our university in cooperation with colleagues from the University of Manitoba, Winnipeg, Canada. And as it is important to increase the educational and scientific potential of Ukraine and cooperate with international partners, we continued it in the current wartime. To get first-hand information on the process of changes in higher education in Ukraine under the conditions of military aggression from students as the participants in the international process involved in the university system, the empirical research was conducted by me. The studies through questionnaire survey included 74 Ukrainian students of Ivan Franko National University of Lviv and lasted from May to December 2023. A list of questions was developed to identify from the point of view of students the work of the Ukrainian university during the wartime. Emphasis was placed on two groups of questions. The first group of questions concerned to the priorities in the work of a Ukrainian university in the conditions of Russian military aggression and psychological changes among teachers and students. The second group of questions related to students' assessment of the difficulties in organizing the educational process, the most important issue in the students' opinion for inclusion in the prospective long-term plans of Ukraine for the post-war period. Some of these results, the most important for the problem analyzed in this study, are presented here. As we can see from the data on this diagram, most of our students, namely 52%, consider that safety for all participants of educational and research process to be the priority of the work of a Ukrainian university during the wartime. 25% of students consider high quality education to be priority, and 13% consider that service to society is important. As for psychological impact, as a measure of which we choose the change of enthusiasm in the university teachers' work and university students' study. Significant differences can be very clearly traced here. Thus, the majority, 37% of our students, believe that with the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, the enthusiasm of Ukrainian university teachers to fulfill their professional duties and ensure the educational process has not changed. In addition, almost a third of respondents, 29%, believe that it has been even increased. At the same time, more than half of the surveyed students, 51%, believe that the enthusiasm of university students to study has decreased. So the current situation imposes an even greater responsibility on the university teacher, who must be involved not only in the educational activities of students, but also help them psychologically, being close to them. As you can see, the above view is also confirmed by the survey data presented here. Students believe that the difficult psychological state of the participant in the educational process is one of the most serious problems that create obstacles for ensuring the quality of education, 39% of respondents. A slightly smaller number, 36% of respondents, consider organizational problems of the process of quality education in the conditions of military aggression to be the most serious problem. In total, this is a vast majority of the respondents. Considering the students' assessment of the difficulties during the organization of the educational process, their assessment of the most important issue for inclusion in the perspective long-term plans of Ukraine for the post-war period shown here. It seems reasonable. Thus, more than 70% of the students believe that the most important issue that should be included in the long-term plans of Ukraine for the post-war period is the implementation of programs of psychological rehabilitation and adaptation for participants of the international process. Also, more than half of the respondents, 59% of the respondents, consider that one of the most important tasks is restoration and development of the infrastructure of higher education institutions destroyed by the Russian armed aggression. For students, it is also important the deepening of integration of Ukrainian higher education into the European higher education and scientific space. In deepening the integration of Ukrainian higher education into the European higher educational and scientific space, an important role belongs to the internationalization of higher education, the institutional level rationalism, which, according to the students, is justified by the needs for the students and staff development, as well as challenges for the Ukrainian universities in times of war. Russian invasion and the new realities it created had a significant impact on the students' evaluation of the program strategies of internationalization. This can be seen from the research results presented here in this diagram. It shows the most visible for our students program strategies of internationalization at the institutional level before and during the wartime. Generalized comparison, as well as a comparison of these results with the result of similar survey carried out by me 2 years earlier during the COVID crisis, are shown here on this slide. As we can see from the comparison of the pre-war survey result of 21 and now 23, the general trend are very stable. Students considered the most visible program strategies of internationalization at the institutional level to be student exchange program, foreign language study, and work study abroad. The conditions of the state of war significantly changed the assessment. As expected, the importance of such strategy as work study abroad has been increased. At the same time, the first two strategies have significantly lost their role in the assessment. In the survey, to approximately 60% of pre-war level. And if something similar could be expected in relation to student exchange program, then the decline of the foreign language study came as a complete surprise to us. It was logical to expect that if the demand for studying and working abroad is growing, so then the demand for learning foreign language should also grow to support them. We can assume that this is the result of the fact that the male part of students' youth lost the opportunity to travel abroad with the state of war, and therefore switches to other options for responding to the situation. At the same time, interest in such strategies, which were not too popular for students in pre-war period, internationalized curriculum and joint double degree programs have grown significantly by 2 times or more. Regarding the question, does the internationalization of higher education, in your opinion, help to cope with the challenges of war? We can see that 3/4 of students answered definitely yes, or maybe. And finally, we know that the internationalization of higher education, along with the support from the state and international institutions, is also considered by the large part of the surveyed students. It is 40.5%, 39 and 2 and 36, to be the basis of the resilience of Ukrainian university to challenges and crisis phenomena. But majority of survey students, 77%, consider online education and its improvement to be the most important factor that allows ensuring this resilience and sustainability. This means that Ukrainian universities, in terms of organization, responded correctly and reasonable to the challenges of Russia's military invasion, and their experience can be used by other countries facing existential threats. And here's about my short conclusions. Russia's barbaric full-scale military invasion and the war that Russia has been already waging against Ukraine for almost 2 years have caused enormous damage to all aspects of human life in Ukraine, including the educational process. Our research shows that the current responses of Ukrainian higher education system analyzed by us in this work, namely the improvement of online education system, organization of the work of higher educational institutions relocated from the occupied territories to the territories controlled by Ukraine, seeking support from international institutions, partnership programs with partner universities are justified and help to maintain higher education in Ukraine. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yuliya, for this insightful presentation. And thank you everyone who is now at this webinar. I see a great interest, including from scholars in Ukraine. I'm also delighted to see that the participants in this webinar include actually all these 3 speakers of our webinar series. They are all here. So I would like to greet you warmly and really say that looking forward to hosting your talks in the next few weeks. I see already questions coming in, so I will not take any more time. We have around 23 minutes to address these questions. Let me go one by one and invite Isaac Rumin to ask the first question, please.
Thank you very much, Maya, and thank you very much, Yuliya. I have to start from admitting that my heart is broken by this presentation. Each time I hear about the damage for Ukrainian education system is, I feel terrible. Even now I'm representing German university. But let's do substantive work. And thanks for this presentation. It's very informative, but you know, in your last slide, you outlined the challenges and some solutions. But frankly speaking, within the presentation, I couldn't connect the challenge, for example, challenge of establishing massive, high-quality online education with internationalization. I might be provocative, but it looks like we use the same language, Bologna process, half of Bologna programs, exchange, but there are indeed some urgent things like, again, maintaining quality of education in this terribly difficult situation. So what is exactly maybe on the examples of online education, how internationalization helped to improve online education really in Ukraine today? Thank you.
I thank you for your question and for your comments and for your interest to this topic. I will try. I would say that it should be based on our international partnership. It is based on our international partnership. For example, I will give you some example from my personal teaching experience. When I try to organize global class with participation of my students from my university and participation students from the University of Canada, for example, it is mean that I have long time contact, long time cooperation, international cooperation with my colleague from Manitoba, from other university, and I can do, and we can do this together. If I would know them, if I would not have very long scientific collaboration with them, it would not be possible to arrange. And it really works. We started during COVID crisis. Nobody can, it was not possible to move. And we start to think what we should do to continue our work. And we decided to do this together in global class, like we are sitting here, and we can discuss everything, and we can see that actually we have the same problems, and actually we have the same challenges, and we can do it together. We continue this during the wartime, because it is really important to feel the support of our international partners and to do it during wartime. And we continue to do it now. I can add as an example, it is visiting lectures. I did not mention it here, but it is as an example, it is other strategy, internationalization strategy, visiting lecture. So it is for 1 hour or for 1 hour and a half, and you will not come to Ukraine for 1 hour to give a lecture, but online it is possible to do. And again, it depends on our partnerships. So I have a good scientific cooperation with German scientists. I have a good scientific cooperation with scientists from Finland, who is doing the same, who is teaching in the same area, educational sciences, for example. So I can invite them to give a visiting lecture online for my students. And my students, they are from educational sciences, and this lecturer, she is from educational sciences, and she can share her teaching experience with my students. It always was a very fruitful discussion. So my students can ask. They don't only have me as the lecturer, but also my colleague from Finland, and she can share her teaching experience with them. As an example, my colleague from Germany, she is a Bologna expert and higher education consultant from the University of Münster, for example. Sonia Mikelska, it looks like she's here. So I invited Sonia to give lectures for my students and to share experience as real expert in education with our students in educational science who are future experts in education. So it is also fruitful discussion to do this. So we hope that we will continue to do this now in this really difficult time, and we will continue with this during wartime. I mean, with this visiting lecture, it is really good, and students even ask a question, and they can use this information for scientific articles, for their research, for their thinking. So I think it is really good to motivate them and to ensure quality of education. And internationalization in the frame of this strategy, like visiting lecture, help to do this.
Thank you both. Can I invite Liz Shepetilnikova, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for very interesting presentation, and sharing your insights from what is going on. I'm affiliated with the University of Hong Kong, and my work is also on Ukraine. So one of the questions that I keep on struggling with, and I would be very curious to hear your insights, is really understanding the implications of the growing discourses of decolonization and de-Russification within the public and academic communities on the university activities, and particularly on the international activities of universities, right? Because we know that there's been quite an effort to try and understand what would decolonization mean in this context of Russian war against Ukraine. And of course, some of the de-Russification efforts that have been discussed, particularly in the political communities, have been quite radical. For example, we've had this debates about basically censoring references to any Russian language sources or sources published in Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union by Ukrainian scholars. So I'm curious to really hear about whether or not you've seen this, developing discussions influencing your academic work, and particularly internationalization in Ukrainian academia more broadly. Thank you.
Would you please repeat actually your question?
So my question is really about how the discussions about decolonization and de-Russification that have, developed significantly over the last 2 years influence your university activities, and particularly international engagement in terms of university activities.
Thank you for your question and for your interest. I can tell you that it is completely true that it is already 2 years of war. So during 2 years, we really have this diversification. So probably when Russia's invader decided to attack our country, they wanted to have opposite result. So now we can see that people became like more Ukrainians. So they should understand. They began to understand what does it mean, and sometimes even those people who never understand what does it mean, Russian invaders, and what does it mean. All of this situation now they understand it better. So it is clear for them. It is clear for those who don't understand it before. So we can tell that we have opposite result. We really have changes in minds of Ukrainians, in a way of thinking, I would say. I don't have research result about this, but I can tell you from my experience that for these 2 years, we became more Ukrainians than 2 years before. So we are completely different. It is for sure we are completely different. It is we begin to understand what does it mean, that national idea, and really we became more Ukrainian. And of course, education is part of this process. And as Ukrainian teachers of Ukrainian universities, we also try to work with students in the frame of this. We also try to explain them all of this situation, and we have displaced students from eastern part of Ukraine. As I told via my presentation, so we have this internal displaced students who don't have possibility to study at their home university from eastern part or southern part of Ukraine. They move to other university, to our region, to western part of Ukraine, to north part of Ukraine. So now we have students from eastern universities in our university. So our students are studying together now. We are really close to one another than even 2 years before.
Thank you. The next question comes from Olha Romashko. If Olha could join and ask a question.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. It was rather interesting for me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do now. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So it was rather interesting to hear from my colleague from Ukraine, about her experience. And my question is, each war has its pro and contras. And I want to know, so based on your research, what is the perspective of the educational process, and what can we learn and implement in the current situation? So according to your experience, because I heard much information about your experience and studies. So as you can see, I'm military, and I have experience in another military high institution. So it's rather interesting for here, because in my I am an English teacher, and we don't have here distance education. So it's I know that my colleagues from military institution, they have experience, but we don't have, and that's why it's rather interesting. According to the war, to our current situation, what can we implement in both setting? So what can you what can we present, what can we implement exactly in our current situation, current teaching? What can you recommend us in the current situation according to your research?
Where are you from?
Петро Сагайдачний, National Army Academy.
What I would recommend from my teaching experience, you mean?
Yeah, according to the current situation, we don't have distance teaching. So that's why, according to your research, according to your experience, it's rather interesting for me to compare.
I would say for me it is important, and my research result showed this. It is really important communication teacher-students. So for me, it means that teachers should become closer to students. It is very important from not only from organizational side, from the point of view of organization of educational process, but it is also important from psychological side. Actually, it is also our new lessons. Sometimes students tell me that, yeah, we will do this and that. We will do this test, or we will decide this question. We will answer this question. Now it is. We have some psychological problem to do this, and we should understand this. We should probably give them some time. They will do this. They are really responsible, but if it is difficult situation, we can expect psychological difficulties. What I can add here, at the beginning of the war, it is quite interesting. When war started, my student, sometimes we have a deadline, deadline for some task, some educational task for student, and you have to write this essay until 12th of I don't know, November, and students will do this maybe a little bit later, maybe next week or next month or so. But when war started, it was 24th of February 2022. It was really interesting. We had For example, my students, they have some deadlines to do this and that. And all of them, it was wartime already, and all of them have done, were very strict. It is until 15th of April. Yes, they have, we have sirens, we had sirens every day, but all of them have done it until 15th of April. So it means that they became more responsible after war started. They became more responsible, even if we compare the same student with pre-war period. It is quite interesting question why they became really more responsible, and they tried to do everything in time. And it was really important for them to do it on time after during the wartime. So I think that it is important the psychological side to do closer to to students, to understand psychological problems, to explain them, to be resilient. Also, teacher should be resilient. Teacher should be strong, and teacher should help students to be resilient.
Thank you. You know, according to the situation that happened to our country, so always military institution and civil institution, we have difference in our studying process. So as you mentioned, the frames of your work, we always had these frames, and our cadets should do it in time. So according to the situation, I can see that in what can we implement, of course, to be friendly, to engage them, and to show them another perspectives, not according to the some Soviet methodology. So we have another things, European, most maybe we can see another things in our students, not as Soviet education system. So that's why we should be open, and we have an opportunity to deploy our cadets to deploy to different countries to support you can say to support different translating programs. So they help with translation during education units. So that's why it is an opportunity for them to get involved in another process and to study English, for example, or French or German in the in another countries, and they are engaged in this process. And that's why the war gives them an opportunity to be involved into another process. So thank you for your research. I can say that some things I can implement into my educational process. Thank you very much. I'm really pleased. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are approaching 3 o'clock, so we will have to end now. I would like to thank our speaker for her excellent talk today and everyone who participated with your insightful questions and comments. Subsequent webinars within this series will take place on January 31st, February 7th, and February 14th, basically every Wednesday in the next 3 weeks. I have posted a web link where you can register for these webinars, and I would very much like to invite you to join our subsequent webinars and engage in these critical discussions around the current realities facing Ukrainian higher education amidst this ongoing war disaster. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye for now. Hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Maya.